become more persuasive and compelling whenever you speak? Well, I'm going to give you one simple tip. And it's all about this. Tell better stories. But how do you tell better stories? What should your tactic be? Well, every single great story does this to their audiences. They create unanswered questions. Create unanswered questions. Because whenever you can speak in a way that gets people to want to understand what's going to happen next, you've got them leaning in. And I'll tell you that whenever it comes to stories, whether it's in an interview, an executive update, of course, a speech, you can use this to manipulate your audience's mind to the point where they're invested in you solving that problem that you're articulating. They want it to happen. They're locked in. And what's happening? Dopamine. Dopamine is being released from the hypothalamus, the inner part of your audience's brains. And that neurotransmitter is what's helping them stay attentive, motivated. It even helps with creativity, right? And they're able to remember your content that much better if you can narrate it in the form of a story that's persuasive. So what can you do to start telling stories? Well, glad you asked. One of my favorite frameworks that you can use when telling stories, whether you're put on the spot, whether you have it prepared, is to follow this framework of speaking. It's called PAP. And PAP stands for problem, aggravation, and payoff. Problem, aggravation, payoff. The idea is you want to hook your audience right away with a problem that they are caring about to solve. Then you make that problem worse. You make that really hurt for your audience to the point where they really want you to solve it. And then you give them the payoff, that relief, that release of dopamine, because you're building it all up. And then once you release it, they're going to be satisfied. They're going to remember, and they're going to be incentivized to want to hear more. So let me give you an example in the context of, let's say, an executive update, because I can tell you that if you can master telling stories whenever you're asked questions, you then become an elite communicator. So let's say your CMO, your chief marketing officer, were to ask you, how did we all of a sudden get such an increase in our ROI from our advertising spend? And you might ponder in the question and think about it. Well, the problem that we had been facing was that our ROI had just flatlined at 10%. We tried every conceivable method to boost that return, everything from switching up copy to posting on different social platforms to even hosting a webinar series. But no matter what we tried to do, it was like throwing spaghetti at a wall. Nothing seemed to work. And it wasn't until we bought this particular software platform that helped us run much more effective split tests, because our problem was we weren't isolating our variables that we were trying to test for. And once we bought that software platform, isolating on one particular area, starting with our social media platforms, we saw our ROI increase by 30% just by focusing on this platform here. See what I did? I used the problem. I set it up by, hey, a flatlined ROI. I then made it worse by saying we tried every single method, but nothing seemed to work. And then I gave the payoff, which was it wasn't until we did X, and that helped us. Now, that might create more unanswered questions like, where do we go from here? How do we keep this going? But that's great. You've already hooked them. You've got them invested in the problem. You can do this more and more. Now, forewarning, not everything can be answered with just PAP very easily. Sometimes it might feel like you're force-fitting it, but my intent behind this video is to help expose you to this way of speaking so that you can practice it yourself. See whether it feels comfortable to you. Because sometimes if you're in an interview setting, it might be hard for you to fit the PAP framework in. You could do it, but there are other frameworks for that too. I just want you to practice this over and over. You can start with simple stories that are more personal about you using this framework. And the more you can start speaking in this way, the more fluid you'll sound, because you're just following a framework. You're able to keep your structure. You're not necessarily looking for the next word that you're about to say. And that, my friends, is exactly how you can be more persuasive and compelling. Give that a try. Let me know what you think.